that if you say used to run 3 hour long critiques in your brick and mortar classrooms, that does not translate into a 3 hour video critique. Because when I'm running a critique in my classroom at RISD, I do run really long critiques. I've run critiques that lasted 4 hours. I usually give them a break at some point, but we pretty much will go 90 minutes straight through a critique with no break. That is extremely typical when I teach at RISD, but online you can't do that. And the reason I know this is because I've had a lot of students telling me over the past week or so that their teachers really are trying to replicate the same experience that they have in the brick and mortar classroom online. And guys, it's not gonna happen. For example, if you are used to a 5 hour long critique, you cannot make it a 5 hour long video call. It's just not gonna happen. You have to shift things up a lot. And I think that's a really important thing to think of. By the way, all of these mistakes that I'm going to talk to you about today, almost all of these come from students. Basically, what I've been doing is on social media and also with some of the students I'm working with right now, I've been asking them, hey, what are some of the things that you guys have been noticing that people are doing to teach online that you think shouldn't be done or you think really don't work for one reason or another? So I did not come up with the stuff all by myself. In fact, most of this is from students. Most of it is not from me, actually. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us, Pennington Arts and 10,000 Crows. If you are watching right now, tell me if you are a teacher, if you're a student, and whether you have transitioned to a remote classroom. I'm guessing most of you have, but what are some of the things that maybe you would add to this list? Things that you think teachers and students shouldn't be doing online to make things more difficult than they need to be? Because I think we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. We're all figuring it out. I have a lot of experience teaching online, and yet I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things as well. Oh, Pennington Arts, you're in high school and you start next week. Yep, I feel a little bit lucky because RISD is on spring break. And so technically, I have a little bit of extra time to get up and running. I know some teachers, they had to do it in like 2 days. So I count myself as extremely lucky that I had the opportunity to do that. Basically, if you're going to have a group video call, you really should limit it to 30 to 45 minutes. 30 minutes is fine. You will have no trouble with 30 minutes. 45, I think, is where people start to lose their focus, get a little bit angsty. And I think you can do 60 minutes, but I don't really recommend it because I think 60 minutes is pushing it a little bit. It depends somewhat on the age group of your students. I would say if you have college students who are extremely engaged and very responsible and really want to be there, you probably could pull off 60 minutes. But I think for most people, 45 is about right because you guys don't want to make these epic long video calls that nobody's paying attention to. It's really a waste of everybody's time. And did have a student who messaged me a few days ago and they said, Clara, my teacher ran a 5 hour long video call and they said it was brutal. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I don't think I could stay on a 5 hour long video call, even as the instructor. So keep it really short because it's too difficult for everybody when the call just keeps going on and on and on. It's not productive. I said this in an earlier stream that I did a few days ago. And if you guys want to watch that stream, it's called 5 Tips for Teaching Studio Art Online. And I would say if you're just finding our content now, I would highly recommend you go and you watch this stream first, because this stream introduces basics of teaching online. And what we're starting to do now with the newer streams is to introduce more the smaller logistical aspects that I can't go over in a single video, but we're now starting to break some of that down. But what I did say in that earlier video is that if you have group calls, break it down. Don't have 20 students on a single video call. I would say 4 to 6 is very good. Obviously, it really depends on your class size and how much time you're able to put into it. But I think 4 to 6 is pretty good because, wow, at Art Prof, We once had a Skype call. I think it was 15 people because I had interns and assistant editors and staff. It was chaos. And we were only on that call for about 10 minutes. And I thought my head was going to blow up. So I really recommend 4 to 6 students. That salty person saying online classes are an hour each subject. We have 2 subjects before our break. Okay, that's pretty good. I think as long as you don't go past the 60 minutes time, you're probably fine. I mean, I have really wonderful, responsible former students who were telling me, yep, I fell asleep. And these are people who really wanted to be there and really want to learn, but the format just made it impossible for them to have that type of attention span. So just be really conscious of that. I think that's a good thing. And I would also say that if you can, and again, this really depends on each teacher's situation, if you can make yourself available for one-on-one video calls, I think that's fabulous. Because I did have one student message me, and they said that the thing that they were the most concerned about as a student was really losing that face-to-face time with their teachers, that one-on-one that they get. They're worried that they're not going to have that anymore. And so if you can make yourself available for that, definitely. Now, the thing is, this is almost the opposite of what I said earlier about the really long in-person critiques. Usually when I talk to students at RISD, sometimes it's like a quick one sentence statement that I say to them and I just run by and then I come back. And we oftentimes don't have like really involved one-on-one conversations in the classroom because I'm so busy working with everybody. I don't want to like stop everything and talk to this one person for 30 minutes. But wow, online, it actually makes more sense to do that because if you're going to bother to set up a video call with an individual student and schedule that, it's like you spend all that time making that happen. You might as well really get the most you can out of that conversation. I can't imagine that I would have a video call with a single student and have it be 5 minutes. That just doesn't seem like a very good use of our time. So I'm just going to expect that it's going to be at least 10, 15 minutes or so, could even be longer than that. I mean, I'm not recommending you do this like every week necessarily. You probably don't have the time to meet with a student that often, but I think as much as we can provide that extra support for students one-on-one, I think that's really good. And honestly, as a teacher, I wasn't really thinking about that for a while, and it wasn't until the student messaged me that I realized, oh my gosh, you're right, because you can really feel as a student, if you're watching all these videos and you're attending all these group calls, that you really are going to lose that personal connection that you can develop with a student in class when you are having those one-on-one conversations. And honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about being a teacher is really being able to connect with a student on a one-on-one level because they will say things to you one-on-one that they probably don't want the entire class to hear, or maybe they don't want to say it in front of a group critique or something like that. So that's really great. I always say to students in my classroom, look, if there's something you want to talk to me about and you don't want anybody to know, just ask me if you can talk to me in the hallway. I really want them to know that's an option because sometimes things come up and you don't want them to feel like they have to tell you in front of the entire class. Tip number 2, long emails. You guys tell me in the chat, how many emails are you getting every day from everybody since this situation started? Oh my goodness. Like I have 2 kids and each of my kids takes like 5 subjects, and they also take music lessons. And for some reason, every teacher feels the need to update me almost every day. And so just from like one kid alone, I will get like 5 emails from so many different teachers, and some of them are so long. And I'm sorry to be the horrible parent who just goes delete, 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 because I just have other stuff to do. I can't spend all my time reading these super long emails. I'm getting them left and right. And so the issue with sending a long email is that really you're going to risk people just not reading it at all, which is a lot worse. Unveil Art is saying, you're trying to get into art school. You have any tips on how to compose a good portfolio? Yep, what I would recommend you do, if you go to artprof.org and you click on tutorials, there will be a section on that page that says Art School Portfolios. You want to click on that link, and that will take you to the complete Art School Portfolios guide. It's got everything you need there. If you can't find it, comment on this video later and I will send you that link. Salty person saying 35 or more emails a day. I stopped reading them. Exactly. Like, I just gave up. Like, there just were way too many of them. Pennington is saying long online sessions don't work for you because I'm going to be at home. When I'm in my home, I'm in a different mindset than the one in a classroom. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many distractions. I had a student who said to me today, yep, I fell asleep. And this is somebody who is so wonderful in the classroom. And I know that they're a great student, but there's just so many temptations. And so when you teach online, you're competing for people's attention like 10 times more. In a classroom, yeah, you can sort of get away with stuff, but not the way you can when you're online. I mean, you could be like watching a movie while you're at a video call. I mean, the teacher would never know. So that's what I think is very tricky about it. All right, look at the difference between the email at the top and the email at the bottom, okay? Don't send the email at the top because here's the thing, guys. While it is nice for people to express their concern and all that, it doesn't help me in an email because what I want is the information. So at the top, they say, I hope this email finds you healthy. I know this is unprecedented. I can't replicate the learning experience. I have resources. Yes, that's great. But the thing is, when I'm reading an email, it just doesn't help. And really what it comes down to is what I wrote in the section at the bottom, which is resources on Blackboard are posted Monday morning. Like, just write that. If you guys just write that one sentence, I will read it. And I know it might feel a little bit cold to just put the information out there in such a curt way, but my guess is a lot of people would appreciate that because I think what's hard is when you get an email like that and you think, oh, whatever, there's just so much going on in there, I'm not going to bother. And then there actually is one thing buried in that email that you actually do need to know. That's the problem. And so write short emails, guys. Don't have to spend time telling people how you feel. Just get the information out there, whatever it is that you need to tell people. For example, there's a reason why we have the phrase TLDR. If you don't know what that is, too long didn't read. So, okay, you could either write a super long email that's very heartfelt and expresses your concern for the students that doesn't get read, or you could say the one thing in one sentence that actually matters that people will actually read. I know if you're an administrator and you're the principal of a school, you can't exactly do that. But I would say probably for classroom teachers, that's more of an option. I know as administrators, they have to do that. But I would just say in any circumstance, when you can just cut to the chase, just do it. Because my gosh, my life was already emails before, and now it's like 3 times worse than it ever was before. Another thing is if you end up emailing your students for whatever reason, don't send them the actual content that you want them to look at. Don't put that in the email. What you want to do is in the email, you could say something like, I updated the syllabus, please go to this doc. That's the way to consolidate things, because if you start sending information piecemeal in all these separate emails, the students are going to lose all of it. So the email is sort of like, oh, heads up, this has been updated, go to the doc. Then everything stays in the same place, and people aren't having to search through multiple emails to get all the information. Raphael is saying, in my experience, short, concise, and precise is the way to go. Yep, I am such a fan of that, Raphael. That really works for me as a teacher. Number 3, slow responses. I get it, guys. Everybody is really overwhelmed right now. I mean, to me, getting ready for my classes and doing art prop is the easy part. The hardest part for me right now is having my kids home. That is very challenging because it's hard to keep them on task and all that. But I think that one thing we can do as teachers is really being prompt about our replies. Because here's the thing. I think a lot of people, students especially, I'm guessing because of what they're saying to me, they feel very unsure about what's going to happen. And I think for a lot of students, that feels very nerve-wracking to not know. And a lot of things are changing very, very quickly. And what I'm hearing from a lot of students is, well, I had all these questions, I emailed the professor or the teacher, and it's been 3 days and I still haven't heard anything. That's not good, guys, okay? I mean, I'm saying be prompt within reason. Obviously, you do the best you can, and I don't know what everybody's home life situation is like, but if you can be really prompt with the students, I think it makes a huge difference for people. For example, during the normal school year, I have all these rules about email because I just found as a college professor, I get so many emails as it is. And so if students email me the second they think about something and they haven't taken the time to actually see if maybe that information is actually available in my course handouts, oh my goodness, I would get like 50 student emails a day. But I don't because I have email rules. I say to the students, look, I only reply to emails on weekdays. So if you email me on Saturday night, you're not going to get a reply till Monday morning. Also, I don't check emails late at night on the weekdays. Usually, if you email me during the day, I will get back to you by the end of the day. I also say to students, you guys got to be brief. Don't tell me your life story. I'm sure it's interesting, but I don't want to read it in an email. And I also tell students, look, emails are for cut and dry questions. It's like, is it okay if I buy this brand of kneaded eraser as opposed to this one? And I can just shoot back real quick, yep, that's fine. Or no, buy this other one instead. They're not for big topics. Like if you want to talk to me about, oh, how am I doing in class? What can I do to improve? That is a face-to-face conversation. I explain to them, look, if you can save it for next class and let it be a face-to-face conversation, you should. Sometimes email, yeah, you can't wait, you got to send it to me, that's fine. But I am pretty strict about what students really can email me about because, again, I get overwhelmed otherwise. Now, I revised my email rules for coronavirus. So let's see how things have changed. These are my coronavirus email rules. Basically, contact me anytime you want. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay? Yes, this does make my life a little bit busier than I would like it to be. But guys, if it makes my students feel better and more secure and the communication is smoother, in my opinion, that's a really small price to pay for everybody having a little bit more peace of mind given all the chaos that's going on right now. So this is my new policy, and basically they can email me Saturday at night and they probably will get a reply the next day. I normally never do that, but I think in this situation that is a good idea. Because if you guys can be just one part of somebody's life that's reliable, that's consistent, that's available, in my opinion, that goes a really long way. I mean, this is a very silly thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a huge NPR nerd, and I am just amazed that they are running NPR with like half the staff working remotely. And I just am like, oh my God, like, how does that happen? Like, I cannot imagine the technical challenges of doing that. And yet nothing has changed on NPR. Like, you would never know from a tech point of view that people are doing that. And that like seismic shift that you don't even notice when on the air is amazing. And so if I can be a little bit remotely on that level of consistency, I'm going to do it, even if it's more time from my own life. By the way, if you guys would like to get more information about how to critique art online, I think this is great if you're a student as well. I mean, I know teachers obviously have a little bit more investment in it because they're the ones setting up the critiques, but it might be good to watch just to get some tips on how to do that. So we have this in a playlist on our YouTube channel, which is called Art School and Teaching. Lots of cool videos in there, by the way. All right, number 4 is that video calls, teachers, not for lectures. Not. Apparently, a bunch of students have told me that a lot of teachers are doing this. I sort of get it because it seems to me like the reasoning would be, okay, well, if I do the video lecture in a call when the students are actually present, then I know for sure that they are listening to the video. The only thing is, though, they're probably not. They're probably not paying attention. They're probably falling asleep, in which case it's really not a good use for anybody. So I would advise that you do something else. So here are some options. that you guys can think about. And by the way, if you're a teacher and you're doing a video call, and this goes for students as well, because I'm assuming a student could do this also, if you want to play a video for your students, don't share your screen in a Zoom call and play the video. Because I've had a lot of students say to me, oh yeah, my teacher tried to do that, but my internet connection was so bad that the audio was terrible and I could not watch the video. So it's actually better if you just share the link and you tell them to watch it later. Now, of course, that is inherently flawed because how do you know that they're actually going to watch it? But in my opinion, I would rather them have the option to watch it later, knowing that maybe some of them will not watch it, rather than play a really crummy version of it during a video call when everybody's grouchy and tired. I don't think that's a better solution. So it's sort of like you got to pick the lesser of two evils, I suppose. Pick your poison. I also recommend, if you're going to introduce a new topic that the students totally have never heard of before, give them a lecture to watch or a video call before you give them the assignment. A lot of students have been telling me that they're getting these new assignments and the teachers are just giving it to them as like a doc and saying, here, do the project right now. And a lot of them, I think, are feeling very confused because they're getting the assignment, but they haven't actually had any video interaction with the teacher to really understand the topic a little bit better. It's a small thing, but it's a shift in your schedule to make sure people have time to check in a little bit first, because at the very least, then they've had an opportunity to ask questions. I have never given an assignment in a class and not had at least 3 people ask questions. That's pretty much a given every single time I give out homework. That salty person saying the reason I've been seeing as to why teachers hold lectures in online classes is so that the class can participate. Yep, I mean, it sort of depends on what type of lecture you're doing. I mean, I suppose if you're doing a lecture that's more of a like lecture / discussion mix, that makes a little bit more sense to me. But I can tell you, I did a lecture a few weeks ago, and usually what I say to people is, look, you guys need to hold your questions. Let me get through the lecture first, and that will be a lot more time efficient. And a couple of people at this lecture decided to not listen to that, and they stopped me like every 5 minutes to ask a question. I did not get through that lecture. I think I only got through half of it. And in retrospect, it was somewhat my fault. I should have just said to them and explained, look, let's just save questions for later. Again, you don't figure things out until you totally mess them up. But I sometimes think that it's better to give the lecture first as a separate video and then have a discussion, and then people can really talk through it. Because it seems like if you're going to bother to spend the time to make a video call, you better make sure that you really spend that time like actually interacting with the students. Oh, hey, Jum Beans, thank you for joining us. It's your first stream, so happy to have you guys here. Pennington is saying, my school said it's mandatory to talk at some point during each class for participation. Sounds crazy to me, considering there will be 40 people in the call. Yeah, that's not gonna work so well. That's why what I'm doing with my class, and I'm lucky I can do this. I know not every teacher can do this. Some teachers have really huge classes, but I am making video calls 6 students tops so that people actually can participate. I mean, once you get to like even 8 people, I think it's impossible. I mean, it's really, really hard. It's just, you can't manage things the same way. Like when I'm running a critique at RISD, I have run critiques all the time with 20 students, and it's fine. We can do it in real life. But in a Zoom call, that is not going to happen. Let's see, Ripple of Aqua is saying, teaching the lesson first makes way more sense than just throwing the assignment at the students like a math equation. You can't just expect people to understand without a little instruction. Yep, I think that totally makes sense. I know that for a lot of people, when you just get a handout that's just text and there's like nothing to engage with, it's really hard to understand it on your own. And so I think it's important to give out a slightly different arrangement of, okay, what is the order that I give people stuff in? Because in a classroom, you don't have to be so specific about it. You can be way more freeform. And when I'm teaching in a brick and mortar classroom, I am very spontaneous. I'm like, hey, let's do this now, whatever, right? But online, I can't do that. I have to really be very specific about when I want to introduce things, because you don't have the freedom of just saying, hey, I think I'll do a demo just because I feel like you guys need it. I've done that in classrooms where I'm like, guys, you were kind of stinking at this, so I'm going to give you a demo right now. And it's not that I plan the demo in advance, it's just based on their performance. I realized in that moment that they needed that demo. I can't do that now. I have to plan the demo in advance. Okay, let's see. Moving on. There are two options for a lecture, okay? You can record the lecture, which is great. You can share the link, but in my opinion, the best of both worlds is actually doing your lecture on live video. There's a lot of really great things that you can get from a live video. One of the reasons is students can watch it live. And so if they're watching live, like you guys are right now, they can type their questions into the chat. And that's a nice way to do that, because I know when I'm doing live streams, I now, because we have a bigger audience, I can't always reply to every single comment in the chat. Believe me, I would if I could, but that's a chance for people to interact without like interrupting you every 2 seconds. And so they can ask questions, and teachers are going to like this. You can track attendance, because what you can do is you can require the students to, let's just say, comment minimum twice during the lecture. Yes, I know they could pop in, turn it off, pop in again. Of course. I mean, there's always going to be a couple of students who are going to want to do that. But I think it's actually more likely that people are going to listen. Like once it's on, it's more likely that it's going to actually happen. Whereas if you record a lecture and you send them the link, they can totally ignore your email and just never even open it. Whereas if it's live and they got to log in and they got to comment, it's way more likely that they're going to stay. Who knows? Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be really tricky and do that. That's fine. You can be proud of yourselves, but you reap what you sow, in my opinion. Yeah, and so what you can do, you can ask the students, send me your YouTube username. And then what's great is that the chat stays there after the video processes. Like I can watch this video I'm streaming now once it's processed, and I could go in and take attendance. I could look in the chat and be like, oh, who commented where? Like you totally would have a track record of that. Now, it doesn't work well if you have students in a different time zone. I know that's a problem, but you could also make them fill out a handout that proves that they actually watch the lectures. There's a lot of things around it. Yes, Ripple of Aqua. I was very proud of this when I came up with this little trick to take attendance with students on live video. Pennington is saying, good idea for teachers would be to record something that teaches the lesson beforehand so students can rewatch it if they don't understand something, then live stream for questions. Oh, even better. Oh my goodness. Pennington Arts, I think you got a career in teaching someday. Okay, tip number 5 is general. Don't underestimate teaching online. Now, I feel a little silly saying that because I know that for so many teachers, a lot of people are feeling very panicked because of the time frame. I mean, I know people who were told school is over right now, and then within like a day had to have stuff ready. And it's remarkable what people have been able to pull off given such a short time frame. But I also know that once the dust settles, I mean, hopefully it does for people at some point, teaching online is a ton of work. In fact, I would even say, in my opinion, teaching online, it's like 3 times more work than teaching in real life. Because teaching in real life, it's so fluid. You can just do things when you feel like it, and you don't have to think about it in advance. If I realize that, oh, my students, they really did a bad job on their homework assignment and they need an extra lecture on this, I can just throw it in there and it's not a problem. But online, you can't just throw together a lecture. Like you have to prepare the slides. You have to think about what you're doing in advance. You got to write down all your notes. I mean, if this is any indication, guys, see all these papers? This is like draft 3 of this stream that I'm showing you. And in a classroom, I would never normally prepare to that extent. I would probably just make stuff up half the time. But online, you don't have that flexibility. And so I would just say anything you prepare online to teach, however long you think it's going to take you, I would double it. And if you want to do it extremely well, I would triple it. So I know that's not really what people want to hear, but that's been my experience, that honestly, teaching in the classroom is easier. When I prepare content for Art Prof, it is a huge amount of work. And so much of it is really boring and extremely tedious. I mean, I have spent days linking stuff on the site. I have spent days making YouTube thumbnails. I mean, like the dumbest little things. But it's like, to teach online, those types of things actually really make a big difference. If people want to know, oh, where do I buy this one supply? You got to give them a link. If you have a crummy thumbnail, nobody's going to want to look at it. And so the packaging and the delivery of online content is very hard to do well, and it's time consuming. Like, even if you know how to do it, like actually doing it is a whole other thing to deal with. Salty Person saying it's sad because there's been new going around that apparently even after the whole virus thing's over, they'd still like to do online classes for students. Oh, wow. I guess I have not really read into that. Yeah, I guess I'll have to look. I guess it sort of makes sense that people would start thinking it that way. But I mean, for studio art, like really, like I think that the advantage of online resources in the context of studio art is that I have always seen Art Prof as a supplement to a brick and mortar classroom, or an opportunity for people who are not in a brick and mortar classroom to learn. I have never seen Art Prof as a replacement for a brick and mortar classroom. A lot of people have asked that to me. They've said, oh, well, now people don't have to go to art class. I'm like, yes, they do. Like, if they can, they should, because there is nothing like that face-to-face interaction. And the relationships that I built with my former teachers, with my peers and my colleagues, I would never have that depth of relationship that I want through an online interaction. So it's hard because I do Art Prof for obvious reasons, but I have never thought about Art Prof as replacing brick and mortar. But I do recognize that Art Prof reaches people that ordinarily would never have a chance to study at a university, to take an actual art class, and that in itself, I think, is extremely valuable. Pennington is saying some schools said that they won't have classes in person for the rest of the year. Yep, I mean, that's what RISD's saying. RISD's done for the semester. I mean, they sent all the students home. I mean, we're going through the rest of the semester, but that was it. I said goodbye to my RISD students this semester. Ripple of Aqua is saying, what would that mean for any kind of studio course like ceramics and sculpture, stuff that's better taught in I have no idea. I don't know what people are thinking, honestly. Like, there's just no way. Ripple of Aqua saying, I know I could never have passed my printmaking course without being in the classroom every day. And Pennington is saying, Art Prof reaches all ages in many different countries. Yep. You know, guys, this totally, oh my God. Sometimes Art Prof is so hard to work on because it's so time consuming and very challenging. But you know what happened to me yesterday? I got a message from somebody on YouTube. It said something like, hi, I'm 11 years old. I love your videos. How can I submit an artwork for critique? And guys, like, I am not an emotional person, but I got like all teary when I read that, because I was like, wow, if it weren't for the internet, that 11-year-old kid would never have found me. I would never have met them ever. And that is profoundly powerful. So I feel that I am very much a proponent of both, but I don't think that one should replace the other. It's like, you should not throw out the baby with bathwater. That is my feeling in general. By the way, guys, we are building a new section on artprof.org. It's called The Complete Guide to Teaching and Learning Art Online, although it's not really complete yet, given that we just threw it up like 2 days ago. However, I'm going to continually work on it every single day. I'm going to be adding more content. And basically what we're doing is we're taking our content and we are tweaking it to fit the coronavirus situation. Because I know a lot of people are very worried about art supplies. I have tons of students who are like, I just don't have access to art supplies. So I'm hoping that we can create an art supply resource that explains, look, if you don't have access to acrylic paints, here are some other options that you can explore. So we'll have stuff like that. And this page is already up. Again, it's still under construction, but it's art prompts. And they're all prompts for projects that you can do at home with minimal supplies, or they are projects that we have video tutorials for, but we give you substitutions. We say, okay, you can make a Lotus Fold artist book, but just skip the book cover because a lot of people probably don't have the book cover supplies, but that doesn't mean you can't make a Lotus Fold book. I mean, you totally can do that if you have paper that you can fold. So that's what I'm hoping, is that this is a guide for teachers and students that everybody can access, because I know there's a lot of stuff circulating online and that's terrific. But I think what I have seen missing from a lot of those docs that people are circulating is there's just no visuals. And as a visual artist, like, I need those visuals. If I get a doc and it's all text, I mean, maybe this is really lame because I'm a teacher, but I just can't pay attention. It's like too difficult for me. So we're trying to make this guide on artprof.org extremely visual, so that way you can really pay attention a little bit more easily without having to think too hard, because wow, there's enough going on in the world right now. Lahona saying, I found the question on Facebook about ideas for supplies prompted a spur of creativity for me. So I'm super stoked for that category. Oh, that's fantastic. I love that, Lahona. And you got some great suggestions. So I totally like made a doc and like cut and pasted like half the things that you wrote on there. And I'm doing the same thing with my stuff. I'm hoping by Monday we will have visuals of all these different options. And actually on Monday evening at 10, me, Lauren, and Eloise, we're going to do a stream that focuses exclusively on home art supplies. So I hope you guys will tune in for that, because that's going to be a really cool stream. By the way, I hope you will explore artprof.org, which is our main site. We have lots of free resources on there that you cannot get on our YouTube channel. And we hope that you will join the ArtProf family and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you so much to our top supporters who keep everything up and running. Thank you so much to all of you in the chat. Great conversations, wonderful suggestions. I will see you guys next time. Stay safe.